Hey, you sneaky little devils and cheeky little demons. We're going to paint Bellicor from War Thunder 20k or whatever. But we already did him. It was a while ago, but it was a conversion of his old model to look like a gumshoe detective. You can watch that video if you want, but not right now. Watch this one. Stay focused. I'm starting by priming in gray and then white at the model's zenith, but also just a smidge from underneath. He's going to have a lot of color and character. After all, he's the god of evil rainbows, arguing with your parents, and walking your dog without a leash. Let's get the lava flow started with very satisfying, blessed capillary action. Look at that. Just need a bit of flow aid. Okay, here's the colors we're going to use for the lava flow. And don't forget the baby! Stupid. We're going to build all the way up to a dark red, and it'll look great by the end of the video, but for now it's a process, and it looks more awkward than a person walking their unleashed dog. This Bellicor is going to be painted clean with subtle highlights, so let's start with defining his base, alien flesh with purples bleeding through a varied gray and brown skin tone. We're also going to have a bunch of glow coming off his sword onto the base and Bellicor himself. It's better to define those early for outlining, even if it all gets covered over later. The wings I play by ear, raw and wriggling, just kind of start with some blue and going from there. I want them to eventually blend in believably into his flesh. Funny thing, when you darken blue ink with brown, it becomes dark green. I didn't really expect that, but I like it. I build up the skin without annihilating all of the glow that I established, and it starts to finally all come together. As we all know, the skin is the most fascinating part of the animal. Hey, what are you doing down there? Listen, don't run, don't move. I just need to quickly talk to you. I'm about to make a bunch of stencils for this video, and I used this. It's a Cricut. It prints out stencils and it works pretty good, but it's not like a recommendation. I got this because it was on sale. One of the issues with it is it's Bluetooth, but it doesn't seem to buffer. So if the Bluetooth stutters and you're halfway through a print, the whole thing fails. I found that to be really frustrating. Also, this company in particular, they've had some kind of gross exploitative attempts at monetization that I'm really not happy with, and I wasn't aware of that until I bought it. So this worked well for me, and I'm sure it would work well for you, but I just wanted to make sure you're aware of those little caveats there. But you shouldn't be outside. Let's get you back. Let's get you back in your cage, okay? I printed out these stencils with a cutter using vinyl stencil material that you would normally use for a shirt, then just rubbing them on my jeans until they're not sticky anymore. I used some vector skull images online and layered them out in a way to look like a wall of screaming souls and skulls. Kind of like the gate in Diablo 2 moving from Act 3 to Act 4.
Tremble before the burning standards of hell.
I went from a sea blue up to a navy blue, but it didn't quite work out. I thought the contrast between base wing and stencil colors didn't quite work enough. I don't know, I didn't like it, so I switched things up. Green wing base to start, then much darker stenciling. Much better. All right, time for some good leather and metal practice for me. With leathers specifically, I always end up speeding past it, and looking back at old work, the results aren't that great. This time around, I slow down and build up more and more tan into the redder base, all the way up to a lemon white. I keep adding scratches and working at this leather for most of the model, as there's always more to do, it seems. I also start edge highlighting and adding some volumetric highlights to the metal, so I can squint at it early on and make sure I have my reflections right before investing a ton of time glazing and blending. And look at that. I also painted all the skulls and talons with a sandy color. I forget. It's probably called sand. Shadows are needed here and there, and I love me some Tamiya panel liner, but the black is too dark and the gray is too light, so I mix them together to make light dark. I know it looks excessive, but a lot of this is going to get cleaned off later, and since I'm at it, I use some streaking grime on the skulls and nasty, ruddy little doodads here and there. And just like wherever sparks joy. Yeah, whatever. Sure. There. All right. I even slopped it onto the talons because I was out of Skeleton Horde contrast paint, just because I can, because I'm in control, and I didn't really know if this would work out, but it did. So, hey, that's a cool thing that I know now. A makeup sponge is used to take everything off the high points. This isn't the right kind of makeup sponge. This is a more expensive one because they didn't have the cheap ones that I like. The cheap ones are kind of harder. I was staring at the sponges for a long time at Shoppers Drug Mart, and then some makeup person came by and was like, "Do you need help?" And I couldn't tell her I was looking for the right kind of sponge to wipe my dolls. I wasn't feeling strong enough to confront that reality there with a stranger. That's on me. Anyway, and while that dries, I take the opportunity to finish highlighting up the bone with ice yellow mixed 50-50 into the base color I used. Whatever that was. Something sandy. And I guess fix up the leather. I got too greasy with the streaking grime. I got a bit overexcited. The skulls need a bit more depth at this point, so I brushed some watered down dark oath flesh into the recesses. And that looks quite nice. All right, so the gold's dry. I start mixing in a true yellow into the base ochre that I used. I'm never happy with non-metallic metals when I first do them, so I keep picking at this throughout the model, adding more and more yellow and more ice yellow as I go until we're adding almost pure white sparkles. At this point, there's no more ochre, just yellow and ice yellow. I'll shut up so you can watch. I know you like to watch, you creep. All right, not bad. The steel gets the same treatment as the gold, building up from a brown kissed darker gray up to a graphite. I'm not trying to cover absolutely everything. I'm trying to retain just a hint of the previous airbrushing that established areas of glow, only going really opaque on edges and other intense areas of reflection. My most extreme highlights are with a barely blue off-white mixed into the graphite. Then back to a lemon yellow for the sparkly dots here and there on the edges so that it kind of just reads as metallic. That's the thing with non-metallic metal. It's those last tiny little steps that really drive the thing home. Now, if you're a clever Carl to my sneaky Pete, you've noticed I've been trying to subtly use the colors of each Chaos God in this model, and the flesh needs some Slaneshi purple enhancement. In some places I add purple as a shade, others I edge highlight, and along scales I make stark striations implying a chitinous plate of otherworldly origin. Painting straight little lines is always easier using flow aid instead of water, so I do that. The first lines are thick, barely lines, but as I add brighter pinks and whites, I focus on making the lines thinner and more distinct. There's a right amount of flow aid to use, by the way. If your paint is running everywhere or too transparent, you need less. If your brush is drying out and the lines are too thick, then use more. You just kind of have to mess around with it. Paint on your fingernails. For his chest cavity thing, I add a buttload of flow aid and just drop it in, letting blessed capillary action carry me to success. Never improve or build a skill where a gimmicky half measure will do. That's what Dad always said. Kind of forgot about the chains. So many of them. Nice chains there, Hot Topic. That's a good joke for like a 40-year-old to make. Right there. I don't know if I'm going to leave that in the script. I'm going to cut that out. This is a little guy, and he goes on the ground. I don't do anything with him that I don't also do with Bellicor, so I'm just going to show a little time lapse here. I paint him fairly normally, but don't go overboard. There's a lot of him is going to get lit up by lava and blue devil fire, but I want the fundamentals in place so I don't have to touch him up too much after the glow effects. I do a green cloak for variety and knock out some really quick non-metallic metal for the sword. Alright, here's the goof of the day. I got a little bit of moist into my dirty down rust bottle here, and it doesn't really do the thing it's supposed to do anymore, because I haven't realized that at the point of filming for this video. And it doesn't do the thing, so I have to deal with that. I mix in a little bit of Tamiya panel liner into some particularly dark spots, and it kind of works out all right, cleaning off the high points with thinner and a sponge just like we did before. To fix up the goop's failure to goop rustily, I take some Ryza rust and heavily dilute it with water, manually painting it into selected places like we did in the old days, which I guess would be like 5 years ago. It's finally time to install our little guy on the ground to lick up Bellicor's skirt, probably looking at his hoo-ha, even though like angels apparently don't have reproductive organs. I feel like demons probably would, which is probably more commentary about myself. And that on some level I view genitalia as inherently evil. I was raised Catholic. Anyway, I also airbrush some of the affected area based on where the guy's glowing gut flames are going to be, including on the guy himself while I'm at it. Alright, so the tip of the sword flames need a little bit more smoky, so I darken the mascooch with the brown ink from earlier. This time it doesn't really turn that green. I don't know why it happened before, but it didn't happen this time, but it's fine. I don't understand anything. But then I move on to the wings. I didn't want the wings to take over the model, but they needed some texture, and you know, Papa Orange Bags needs this fix, so I take some brown and then some dark blue for the recesses, a bit of dry brushing to finish things up, and it looks pretty good. In an attempt to make my videos as inaccessible as possible to most, I felt that adding an airbrush to the mix wasn't enough, so broke out the oil paints for the base of the model. Everything was just too uniform. I mixed up some reddish earthy tones and dialed in some highlights, glazes, and recess shading, just for the hell of it. When you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and goddammit, I'm using every last one of these fucking hammers. It's done.